Hi everyone, welcome back to our Histo PH family, where forgotten Filipino history finally comes alive. Today we're diving deep into the Philippines defeated Spain. History books hid this, a story that rewrites everything we thought we knew about our beginnings. Spain ruled the Philippines for 333 years. But here's what they don't teach you in school. Spain didn't just leave. They were defeated. Not by America, not by some treaty signed in Paris, but by ordinary Filipinos who picked up bolos, bamboo spears, and captured rifles to overthrow the most powerful empire on earth. This is the revolution that history tried to erase. June 12, 1898. A man stands on a balcony in Cavite. His name is Emilio Aguinaldo. He's 29 years old. And he's about to declare something that will shake the world: the independence of the Philippine Republic, the first democratic republic in all of Asia. But this moment didn't come from negotiation. It came from blood, from battles, from a 2-year war that the Spanish Empire desperately wanted the world to forget. Because if people knew the truth, they'd realize something terrifying. A colony of farmers and fishermen brought Spain to its knees. The lie we were told. Most history books tell you the Spanish-American War ended Spanish rule in the Philippines. That's technically true, but it leaves out the most important part. The Filipinos had already won. By the time American ships arrived in Manila Bay in May 1898, Spanish forces were surrounded, starving, and cut off in the capital. The countryside belonged to the revolutionaries. Towns and provinces had declared independence. Spanish priests were fleeing. Garrisons were surrendering. The Philippine Revolution had effectively ended Spanish colonial rule before America fired a single shot. So why don't we hear about it? If you're amazed by our ancestors' story, the Philippines defeated Spain, history books hid this. Help us hit our 500-like goal. Drop a comment about your favorite fact and subscribe to join the HISTOPH family. And don't forget to hype this video. The revolution they hid. It started on August 23, 1896. A secret society called the Katipunan launched an uprising. They weren't elite. They weren't trained soldiers. They were dock workers, farmers, artisans. Led by a man named Andres Bonifacio, they tore up their cedulars, their tax certificates, and screamed the cry of Pugad Lawin. Long live the Philippines! Death to Spain! Spain laughed. How could untrained peasants challenge an empire? But the Katipuneros didn't fight like Europeans. They used guerrilla tactics, ambushes, night raids. They knew the terrain. They had the support of the people. Spanish columns marched into the jungle and never came out. And then came the leaders, Emilio Aguinaldo, a young mayor who became a general. He won battle after battle, Imus, Binakayan, Dalahican. Every victory brought more weapons, more recruits, more hope. Gregorio del Pilar, the boy general, 23 years old and already a legend. Antonio Luna, a chemist turned military genius, hot-tempered, brilliant, uncompromising. And women like Agueda Cahabagan, Trinidad Texan, and Melchora Aquino, who fought, nursed, and hid revolutionaries at the risk of their own lives. The battle Spain lost. Let me take you to one battle that Spain wants you to forget. The Battle of Binakayan Dalahican, November 1896. Spanish General Ernesto de Aguirre led over 4,000 troops, professional soldiers with Mauser rifles, artillery, and cavalry. They marched into Cavite expecting an easy victory. Aguinaldo had 600 men, farmers with bolos and a few old rifles. The Spanish attacked in formation. The Filipinos scattered into the swamps and trees. The Spanish fired cannons. The Filipinos waited. And when the Spanish got close, the revolutionaries swarmed them from all sides. The Spanish broke. They ran. Aguirre barely escaped with his life. Spain lost hundreds of soldiers. The Filipinos captured rifles, cannons, ammunition. It was a humiliation. Spain couldn't hide, and it kept happening. At Imus, at Zapote Bridge, at Maragondon. Every time Spain sent reinforcements, they lost. The Pact of Biak-na-Bato. By late 1897, Spain was desperate. They couldn't win militarily, so they tried diplomacy. Governor-General Fernando Primo de Rivera offered Aguinaldo a deal. Stop fighting, go into exile, and Spain will give you 800,000 pesos and promise reforms. Aguinaldo agreed, but not because he believed Spain. He knew the revolution needed time to regroup, rearm, and prepare for the final blow. On December 14, 1897, Aguinaldo and his men left for Hong Kong. Spain celebrated. They thought they'd won. They were wrong. The return, May 19, 1898. The USS McCulloch arrives in Cavite. On board, Emilio Aguinaldo. America had just destroyed the Spanish fleet in Manila Bay. They needed local allies, so they brought Aguinaldo back. But Aguinaldo didn't return to help America. He returned to finish what he started. Within days, revolutionaries flooded back to the provinces. Weapons hidden in 1897 were dug up. The Katipunan network reactivated, and the revolution exploded. The Siege of Manila. By June 1898, Aguinaldo's forces controlled nearly the entire archipelago. Town after town fell. Spanish garrisons surrendered or retreated to Manila. The revolutionaries encircled the capital. 12,000 Filipino troops surrounded the city, cutting off supply lines. Spanish soldiers were starving. Civilians were desperate. Spain sent frantic telegrams to Madrid. "We cannot hold." And then Aguinaldo did something extraordinary. On June 12, 1898, he declared Philippine independence. Not in Manila, Spain still held it, but in Kawit. He raised a flag sewn by women revolutionaries. A band played the Marcha Nacional Filipina, composed by Julian Felipe. It was a declaration to the world: the Philippines is free. Spain no longer rules here. The Americans step in. But there was a problem. The Americans wanted Manila for themselves. On August 13, 1898, American and Spanish forces staged a fake battle. They'd secretly agreed Spain would surrender Manila to the Americans, not to the Filipinos. Why? Because if Aguinaldo took Manila, the world would recognize Philippine independence, and America had other plans. Filipino soldiers who had fought for 2 years, who had bled to free their country, were ordered to stand aside while Americans marched into the city they had besieged. Aguinaldo's troops watched in fury. The Spanish lowered their flag. The Americans raised theirs. And the Philippines realized they'd defeated one colonizer only to face another. The truth they buried: Spain didn't lose the Philippines to America. They lost it to Filipinos. By the summer of 1898, Spain had no functional control outside Manila and a handful of fortresses. The revolution had won. But the Treaty of Paris, signed in December 1898, erased that reality. Spain sold the Philippines to America for $20 million, as if Spain still owned it, as if millions of Filipinos weren't already governing themselves. America wrote the story their way. They liberated the Philippines from Spain. But liberation doesn't require a 3-year war against the people you liberated. The Philippine-American War, which began in 1899, killed hundreds of thousands of Filipinos. Why? Because Filipinos refused to trade one colonizer for another. Why this matters? This story was buried because it's dangerous. It proves that ordinary people, farmers, workers, fishermen, can defeat empires. It proves that Filipinos didn't need to be saved by America. They saved themselves. And it proves that the history we're taught is written by the victors, and sometimes the victors aren't who we think. Spain wants you to believe they left peacefully. America wants you to believe they were heroes. But the Filipino revolutionaries, they want you to know the truth. They won their freedom. They defeated Spain. They declared independence. And no treaty, no textbook, no propaganda can erase that. Closing June 12th is celebrated as Philippine Independence Day. But most people don't know what it really commemorates. The day Filipinos told the world they were free, not because America said so, but because they fought for it and won. So the next time someone tells you Spain ruled the Philippines for 333 years, remind them, for the last 2 of those years, they didn't. They were losing, badly, and the people they underestimated, the ones they called Indios, savages, incapable of self-rule, defeated them. That's the revolution history tried to hide. But now you know. Our ancestors' stories don't end here. They're just waiting to be rediscovered. Smash that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to join the Histo PH family for the next epic chapter of our forgotten history.